All right, welcome back to Live with Sondra. Today's conversation is for attraction owners and leaders who are carrying everything, the operations, the risks, the responsibility, and still trying to figure out what all works and what you're actually building towards. And today we're talking about scale, risk, owner wealth. That's a great conversation. And not just for the business, but for your life. Before we roll the intro, I want to start by thanking our sponsor, GateMaster Technology. For more than 30 years, GateMaster has helped attractions build systems that scale, not just ticketing and point of sale, but real operational clarity that reduces risk and owner dependency. And that's exactly what today's conversation is about. GateMaster is also hosting its annual GT Summit 2026, happening here in Denver, Colorado, March 11th and 12th. We have a highly curated executive level event designed for attraction owners, leaders, operators who are serious about growth, technology, risk management, and long-term legacy. If you are ready to stop working in your business every day and start thinking about having it work for you, this summit is for you. And if you want to learn more, you can visit gatemaster.info/GT Summit 26. Now let's get to it, and we're going to roll the intro. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Live with Sondra. I'm your host, Sondra Shannon, and today we're having one of the most important conversations an attraction owner can have. How do you scale your business, manage risk, and make sure all of this hard work actually supports your future and not just your guests? This is about control. It's about clarity. It's about building something sustainable. My guest today truly understands what it means to build a business that serves both guests and families. Joe Faren is an attraction industry strategist at 12 Points Business Advisors, where he helps owners protect their personal future while navigating growth and risk. With over 25 years of experience from haunt acting, I want to talk a little bit more about that, and pyrotechnics, definitely want to talk about that, to senior attraction management and financial strategy. Joel brings a rare, full spectrum perspective to the industry. And what I respect the most about Joel's work is that he helps leaders step back from the day to day so the business finally works for them and not the other way around. Now, without further ado, let me welcome Joel to the show. Joel, welcome to the show.
Sondra, thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here today.
Hey, was that intro okay? Did I miss anything?
No, it was spot on. It was spot on. So yeah, well said. Thank you.
Well, hey, first, before we get started, I just have to say we met at this last IAAPA 2025, and it was actually one of the more fun introductions I've had to somebody, because we were eating and drinking at a table at the IAAPA. Was it the opening ceremony?
Yeah, the opening night events. Yep.
The opening night event, and we had Rock of Ages, the original Broadway.
Yeah, the full cast. Full cast was there. So yeah, that was a heck of an opportunity for us.
Yeah, it was super fun, and it was just such a pleasure to meet you. And now you're on the show, which is also one of the things I love about this show. I get to meet cool people and then have these great conversations with them. And I know for you, you've said, because we always ask, like, pre-interview, what you can't live without. One of the things that you said that I really loved was that you can't live without helping owners step back and think strategically about their future. And that really resonates with me as somebody who's been an entrepreneur. I mean, I've pretty much worked for myself since I was 19 years old, and running multiple businesses, but then also working with Gatemaster and what we've done there. But I think that it's a really cool place that you're in with regards to business. I love talking about business, so I really am excited about this show.
Oh, it's funny. I find myself to be really fortunate and that I have my own niche market within a market that is near and dear to me. So it's really a nice thing to be able to provide services that can help people and and have their businesses be generational. Growing up, I saw so many parks. I'm from the New England area, and unfortunately, I saw so many closures when I was a kid, and there was no reason for this other than just a lack of outside guidance in a lot of instances. So I am so privileged to be a part of it and being able to contribute to an industry that means so much to me.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up something that I think is really interesting. You brought up the closures of business. And I don't know if you know this statistic, like the statistics of businesses that will fail within the first 5 years. I think it's like 60%. Is that right?
I don't, it's if it's not that exact number, it's pretty darn close. And I know that if when you start moving generation to generation, the number drops rapidly too.
Yeah. Well, I know that when we're talking about 10 years, I think it's like 90% of businesses will fail by the 10-year mark. Right? It's like it's pretty crazy. Then after 10 years, it's like you get to 20 and 30 years.
You
You
start
get to
getting in
pass
that
it
comfort
down.
zone. Yeah.
Yeah, you get to that's what we're talking about, legacy, something that you're going to talk about today is business legacies. And I want to jump in with a kind of a quick question. Why do you think it's so hard for attraction owners or business owners in general? Why do you think it's so hard? I'm trying to think of how to ask this question. That they, for people to understand that their business can give them freedom. I hope that makes sense. Like, because for me, that was something that took me a very long time to figure out that, I had to build my business, not just what we were doing,
Yeah, and
but
I think what happens and it's a great question because one of the words you hear so again, whereas I do work with the attraction space, we also, the attraction space still falls into being a business. And as you know yourself, I'm sure, many business owners don't necessarily understand that almost because I think they almost feel selfish in the fact that I've taken on a company and this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to commit my life to that, which is great when you're on the consumer side. But realistically, over years of this, it most likely causes burnout to many owners. And I don't think they see the freedom or recognize it because you're simply too deep in the process. The one thing that we actually sit down with a lot of clients is identifying what that freedom is to people. You've got the company, but how does that tie back and align with your own personal goals?
sure.
Because you have to have that alignment in place, just like non-business owners do. What matters at home and how do you tie that back to the business? And that's kind of what we work to solve for.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that there are people like you out there doing that because somebody who's in a family business, I work with my sister, my kids are involved, my husband's involved in and a lot of processes. And then we have families that work with us. And one of my mentors said one time, and this really helped me start thinking about the future of the business and what that looked like and what we would need to do to, create that legacy part of what we were doing. He said, if the business is not okay, the families are not okay. Right. And vice
Sure.
versa. Families aren't okay. The businesses aren't okay. And I'm sure working in attractions, you work with a lot of family businesses. So
A
I think that's
lot. I mean, I would say the majority in the space that I'm in are family businesses. And you know this, I mean, it's a family business, and with that part of the business, and not to sound cliche, is family. And There's a lot for a family business to juggle between both personal and the business perspective. And I think a lot of times, because the owners and the families are so close to what they're doing, that it's not the most easy task to separate the two.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, today our segment is called Scaling Your Attraction, Managing Risk and Securing Owner Wealth. And Joel, I think this is the conversation so many owners avoid until they're exhausted, stuck, or forced into making decisions about their businesses. So I really love this idea of talking about how to do this on purpose, building for it, right?
Mhm.
Building for it. So when we jump into the conversation of like owner's strategic shift, how does an owner practically step back from the daily tasks without everything breaking? Because I know that's the first question so many owners have.
I mean, in they have to do it with intentionality. You're right. I think they have to recognize the fact that they need to be conscientious about the decision to do so. And that's not to say that stepping back with intentionality is disappearing from the scene or what you're providing. But I think what people need to do and what a lot struggle with is what actually requires your presence and what is a decision that you can train another leader or team of leaders in your organization to take care of for you. And I think that's one of the biggest things. I mean, in a nutshell, time blocking is critical because it affords the owner the opportunity to sit down and have a more strategic mind about what the future looks like and plan that out. And then if you have the proper people in place, say that 3 times fast, then you can actually coordinate what processes look like and provide them all a standardization of direction, if you will. So again, I would say it's intentionality.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that you have to plan for,
Most definitely.
right? It's not something that shows up in a business. I actually coach quite a few small businesses. I coach business owners, primarily women to 1 million in revenue, and then also have been teaching financial literacy to women in the med spa space, which I think for some people probably makes a lot of sense if you're watching this show from and know things about me, right? But it's been a real blessing to teach them because these people learn these skills, they create these businesses, and then they oftentimes don't know about money and they don't know how to have conversations about money. And that's something that is super exciting about this conversation that we're having today. So from your perspective, what is the first sign you see that the business is running the owner rather than the other way around?
Actually, that's a great question. And it's night and day when you start having the conversations with a lot of the owner operators. And you can almost tell in having an introductory conversation because those that are saying, "Oh, I've got to be there. Oh, I can't give you an hour of my time today." Now, mind you, that might be a moment in time, but if that's how their whole model goes, if urgency is all the time every day, and they don't necessarily have the opportunity to work in a strategic fashion and everything is urgency, that's probably one of the key signs. Unfortunately, in some instances, I see these owners that they can't step away from the business for a night, for an emergency, without feeling that the business will still continue, with the processes in place, without them having, their hand in the decision that day. So I think when everything feels operationally urgent is probably one of the biggest telltale signs within an organization.
Yeah, that's really interesting, right? If everything seems urgent. And I remember being there. I actually remember a time in this business when I was supporting all of the customers and making the decisions about where the future was going and doing all of the things. And when you get yourself free from those processes that don't need to involve you anymore, you can really start looking at where are we going? And what does that future look like? I feel like even a lot of the business owners that I coach right now, that's something that belief in where they're going sometimes is very low.
Yeah, and I think, in my own opinion, Sondra, what I've seen with a lot of places is that they believe that their presence within the organization that night, that day is required, and it's really their leadership that's required. So
Yes.
again, leadership doesn't need to be them physically being there. It needs to be them structuring their organization in a way that everybody understands and can adhere to.
Yeah. Plus, you didn't get into this because you wanted to make yourself a job, right?
Sure.
Probably not. I mean, some people maybe, but I hope if you're running a business, you built it to have greater impact versus getting yourself a job, right?
No, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, one of the things that I see is a lot of these, they come to the table and they have some brilliant ideas. And frankly, that's why they probably, are involved in the attractions industry. We all want to bring joy. And unfortunately, a lot of times you see that quelled in somebody because they're dealing with 19 things from the guest experience that frankly, if everybody had the same understanding, they could go back to being that leader within the organization and setting the standard. So again, this goes back to, the first thing we talked about, the intentionality. I think it's just knowing that you have to pull yourself aside with the intentionality to lead and have the right team in place.
Yeah, right people too, in the
Yes,
right place,
exactly.
right? There are people that are really amazing at hospitality that can
Without
help
a
you.
doubt.
So, moving to kind of managing industry specific risks, what is the most overlooked risk that you see in the attraction industry right now?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and I think we're seeing it trending now. So, that question to me, I think it's reputation risk, right? So, in the instance of, let's take a seasonal FEC. So again, I'm in the New England area, so there's seasonality with that, and that reputational risk tied to the seasonality. One bad season, one safety issue, or a poorly handled guest experience, it makes national news. And I think, a lot of times you've got the operators, the owners, they go back and they make sure that their investments, their physical assets are actually all tied out. But under investing in things like training, communication, leadership, culture, I think that's something that a lot of owners may overlook. And this protects their brand.
Yeah.
So again, it comes down to, what's the experience and what is the reputation of that specific attraction they're going to. That's what most people remember.
Sure. They remember. And what's interesting is I was watching, and maybe it was good. I was either having a conversation with somebody on the show or somebody behind the scenes, but we were looking at reviews of businesses. And when you talk about reputation and how, everybody remembers the worst thing. I don't know why that is, but everybody remembers the worst thing or they remember the best thing. That's the redeeming thing, right? The best possible experience that they can have. So you want your reputation to be attached to those best experiences and the best memories that those guests are going to have. But that also kind of brings me to asking about owners who are key people in their business and how do they protect continuity without losing control? And I mean, I am a control freak in a lot of places in my life. I'm actually think it's a very positive thing. I'm not afraid of the word control, but also I think that there's a certain point where you can't control everything around you. So even as a control freak, I've had to figure out how to trust people and let them build with the vision that I had in mind versus trying to control what's happening. But what is some of the advice that you have for people who might be a control freak like me, who's dealt with it?
So I would say making the transition from control freak to visionary, right? So
Yes.
most business owners, obviously, they want control. It's part of the reason they started the business, because they have a vision. But I think if you lean more into being a visionary, you can then have multiple people sharing in that vision. And the one thing that we always hear is being indispensable is not a strength. So many of us wear that as a badge of courage, like this company needs me. Well, at the end of the day, you don't want the company to need you. I think you would hope, in looking at everything that you've put into this entity, that you want it to be able to stand and represent itself. So how do you get there? And how do you actually have this, this continuity, especially when you are the key person in the organization? And some of the things we see that are easy ones that people don't consider, it's as simple as, documenting the processes, starting to share and develop team members that can share in decision-making authority, not on all things, but at least to start getting that to lessen the burden for the owner. You have that trusted circle of leaders that can help run the day-to-day, so you can actually take a day off during the season if you need to, or if you get those good concert tickets. And then on top of that, just from a strategic standpoint, from any small business, do you have the proper insurance in place? If X, Y, and Z happens, if you're in a partnership, is that covered? Do you have something in place that what the next course of action is? What is your contingency plan? And none of us want to admit this, but the time that you have at your organization will in some way, shape, or form come to a conclusion. Are you going to dictate what that conclusion looks like, or is it going to be dictated to you? And the funny thing is, you can plan for it. Like with anything, you can actually sit down, and at least you might not know the exact situation, but at least you've put the thought and you have some type of framework around that, with hopefully a team of trusted people around you, that it is the alignment in the vision that you want for the future. And not only does it satisfy what you want to do with the business, but it aligns with what you're trying to do in your own personal life.
Yeah. No, I think that's so important. It's funny that we're having this conversation in January, because one of the things on my vision board is to get real clear about what that looks like in the event that something happened to me, right? I mean, I had some of that planned over the years because I have kids, right? But then really looking at my business, like I love what you said about, do you want to have control over that moment? Yeah, I do, especially as a control freak, right?
Well, unfortunately, and I hate sounding like Mr. Doomsday, but like the moment's going to come when some type of decision needs to be made. And like I said, you want to be the one, I'll use your control freak term, but as the one that's the control freak, making that decision. This is what I know, this is what I prepared for, and this is how we're going to do it.
Especially if this business is your legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If this business is your legacy, then I think you got to tell people what that future looks like.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a cool conversation. And that kind of brings me to like the wealth and legacy planning that you help people with. What needs to change so business growth actually translates to personal financial security?
That's a great question, because what we find ourselves doing more times than not, we obviously want to work with a business owner and make sure that they understand the value and the impact of any of the decisions they're making, whether that be in, anything they're doing from a capital expense to maintenance to how long do they, what are they looking for the future of the park to be? But more times than not, operators that haven't prepared for the future just keep back in there, continuously going in, and they're putting everything that they have into the company, not necessarily understanding the impact that might have on their own personal life. So the things that we try to do is do more of an alignment of, Sondra, what are your goals with the organization? What does that look like? And we literally have a defined process of, is X, Y, and Z covered? But then where I think a lot of people don't necessarily have the opportunity is they look and go, and you cited this, I've got kids that are in college. I plan on buying a lake house. I plan on, same type of strategy. The irony here, many owners sit there and they can rattle off what they're going to be doing from a planning perspective with their attraction over the next 6 months. They all know that. They might not have it documented, which they probably should, and they should go beyond the upcoming season and have everything together. But even if they have that in place, they typically don't go back and be like, here's how it's reflected on my life. And here's the value I'm going to have to my own, my own personal life and what that is. So many people are spending so much time investing in bringing joy to others. The one thing that I see is owners coming back at the end of their tenure looking, for some type of succession strategy, and they don't necessarily know or have prepared for what do they want to do with the next 10, 20 years of their life.
Right.
And the simple thing is to just get in front of it. You start planning for that and aligning that against the business. That's your key to success. To go at it blindly, none of the owner operators go at their parks blindly on a seasonal basis. They should apply the same logic within their own personal lives.
Yeah, I love that. I love that for so many reasons, because even if you might be planning for that doomsday scenario with some of these things that you're discussing, but I want to show you something. I'm gonna grab it real quick. I've got this like playbook, which is essentially our business plan. So if anything did happen to me, they just got to get in my offiess, right?
Oh, good for you.
Get in my office, and at least they know how to run the business. Now, there are some things that I'm sure you are teaching with regards to wealth and legacy planning that go beyond just the operational side of the business. What's the plan for us to get to where we want to go? That's what's in that document, and anybody, be it operations, marketing, they can go there and they can look at that. And it probably needs to be updated. Okay, if I'm being real.
But I would say this, you know what, Sondra? You're ahead of many in the fact that you have that framework there and you've already invested the time in it. You know what a strategy is. The one thing that I tell people when they start working with us, they're like, well, I have X, Y, and Z together, which is great. You should have X, Y, and Z together. The other thing that we like to do when we're engaging with owner operators, this, or business owner, right? They're investing 18 to 20 hours a day. That's how it works. That's what they do. That's what they enjoy doing, frankly.
Yeah.
The one thing that we're doing on this side, and like I said, I have the luxury of wearing two hats. I get to be involved in the attractions industry and understanding how all of these laws and regulations and changes can impact all of the business owners. So I look and go, continue to bring the joy. And I can tell you what has changed over the last year and, to get that in alignment. So frankly, it's one less thing you need to worry about and you can focus back on what your business is doing.
Yeah. I mean, you have to delegate these things. If I'm being fully transparent, that is not just my idea. And I had a team that helped me build that. So I fully resonate with what you're saying, because had I not had somebody coach me through it, it probably wouldn't have been done. And I'll be honest, it was during the pandemic, the P word.
The P word.
Yeah, the year that I would like to forget, but I can't seem to forget it because there's so many lessons in that year.
I was just going to say there's so many lessons.
So many lessons in that year. But going back to that year and what we went through really had me thinking about the future in a much different way. And I'm sure that a lot of business owners found themselves in that position and are looking for people like you who can help guide them through this planning that needs to be done. So, kind of jumping to succession, how does thinking about succession early shift day-to-day decision making for those business owners?
Well, you know what? I mean, I think one of the things is it allows them to basically see what they haven't seen yet. There's a few things that they can do here. They can start, instead of, a lot of people are turning away from what succession looks like because they can't envision a world that they're giving up the control and what that looks like. And they're like, oh, I'll figure it out as I go. We know this. The pandemic happened out of the blue. Right? Like nobody expected that. Nobody planned for that. We had no idea what to do. But I think in starting to set the framework, it's basically what are the possibilities and what are you open to? If somebody comes to you, are you looking for 20 years now to, sell your practice to somebody else? Are you looking to hand that along to somebody else in the family? There's considerations here. And again, it leaves you the opportunity to know what your preference is, and this sounds like a bad term, but almost like, what is the win for you? How do you want
Yeah.
that to play out? Because unfortunately, some people, when they don't plan, don't get the decision that they have it made for them. But a lot of people look and go, well, this is going to be left to a family member. And the family members come back, and I've seen it. They go, oh, my kids don't want this business. And you're like, oops. But at
Yeah.
least if you can have that dialogue and have it, to your point, like that binder, have something as a foundational baseline that's a living, breathing document that at least you don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel should a new opportunity come in. We've seen it in the industry over the past year in that a lot of the smaller operations got taken over by much larger ones. And frankly, it was the right way to go. It was the right decision to make. But if you're sitting there as an owner and you don't know what the valuation of that organization is, are you getting a deal? Are you not getting a deal? Are you ready for the next steps? So I think getting all of that, getting that structure in place and really starting to have the conversations gives you a much stronger foundation to have legacy success, if you will.
Well, I think too, like if I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think I am, but when you have this plan, like we have in this book,
Mm-hmm.
and you have an idea of where you want to go or how you want things to go, then it does influence so much of the decision making that happens within the business. And especially for me, also, I'll tell you, one of the things that's in this book is this show. I remember when they said when they said, "No, Sondra's got to be the face of the company," because this is why nobody ever knew me before 2020, because I decided that I'll be completely real. Like 2020 was super rough on the
Sure.
business.
Yeah.
And because our parks were all shut down and nobody wanted to pay for that. And I didn't want to be that guy that said, you're going to pay for this. So we tried to help them. And so we had to make it work on our side. And I will say this. The thing I loved about the pandemic is the first time in all my years of owning this business that it wasn't my fault. Right? Because I usually say most of the problems in the business are always my fault, right? Because I'm the owner, I'm in charge, I'm leading this. So, but when we looked at, and I love this conversation, when we looked at like, do we want to keep going with this business? Do we want to, because we had bought out the founder in December of 2018. We had 1 full year on our own, right?
Yeah.
It was wild and I just bought this business from the founder. I mean, I'd been a partner of his for all these years, but he was retiring, and I had this decision left with me. Do we keep going? And one of the things that I decided was to do what you said. Let's plan for a bigger future than we ever thought was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things led to this show, because that meant I couldn't just sit in the back room with all the techs making cool products, which is actually what I love. I consider myself an inventor more than anything, right? But looking at that and what it looked like and what we have to do that. So I'm really grateful for people like you that help business owners see that possible future and plan for what that looks like, because it's changed everything.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, and kudos to you. I mean, again, for sitting down, coming up with the plan, knowing how to shift when you need to shift. And yeah, pandemic, you said this earlier, but really taught us all a lot of lessons. And the fact that, I'm sure you came out of it with much more educate viewpoint. So
Yeah. And part of that was looking at wealth, right? What that looks like. I love that that's something that you are working with business owners, because I think for me, up to that point, retiring our founder, that was my goal, right? I didn't see a future beyond that. And here I had to make a decision, not to jump ship when the Titanic was going down, but to keep figuring out how to survive through that. And so one of the things that helped me, and I appreciate what you're doing, was really having conversations about money.
yeah.
Having conversations with people about money. And that's something that I belong to this group called 10X Ladies, and it is founded by this billionaire's wife, and Grant Cardone. If you're familiar with Grant Cardone, yeah. So Grant's wife, and what I really loved about the conversations that we would have, both in her events and then just I did a series of masterminds with her, but really changing that idea of what wealth looked like, what generational wealth looks like. And these are things that business owners, I don't think, really consider, because they don't think they're big enough. I mean, I think that's where I was, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're saying is so par for the course. So many look and go, I plan on doing this for this long, and that's what it will look like. I find people doing the same thing in retirement, and I'm like, oh, as much as we all love having the ownership of the attraction and moving along with the attraction and working and doing what we're doing, at the end of this, the fruits of your labor, what you can do with that, once you have that under control and you know what it is, I mean, that's remarkable. And the fact that you have that next chapter that, frankly, you can start preparing for now and coordinating what that looks like, it's much better than a lot of people. Like I said, so many people just sit and wait and go, well, whatever that is. No one would take that option. We plan everything. And if we can plan, what the landing pad looks like, if you will, why wouldn't we? Because sometimes it's far greater than we ever imagined.
Yeah.
And look at this. I mean, you came out of the pandemic on the other side, and now you've got a podcast, and you're in 70-something shows right now. I'll call it out.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be totally real. Like, they had to twist my arm. I was like, you want me to do what? I'll do it, because it's what's best for what I'm building. But yeah, it was it took a lot of growth, and I think, not to keep bringing up the pandemic, but for me, realizing that, like, I had to dream so much bigger than where I was.
Mm-hmm.
Dream so big, this thing can't ever get broke again.
Yeah. Yep. Question for you. How did you who told you to dream bigger? How did you get that insight?
Well, I'll be honest. I was watching Grant on. Did you ever watch Undercover Billionaire?
I've seen it briefly. Yeah.
So my husband had always wanted me to get into Grant Cardone's sales and marketing stuff, and I was like, Grant's not for me. You know what I mean? Like, I just and truthfully, I love Uncle G. He is. I love what he's done for business owners in terms of creating, like, bigger belief in what's possible and helping people sell and market. Sales and marketing were always a really hard thing for us in this business, because as a business owner, like, you just want to do your thing. You don't want to dance and make TikToks. I did one of those today. But you know what I mean? But that's what you got to do now. And he helps with that. But during the pandemic, I'm looking at losing everything and watching him on Undercover Billionaire, and they had to build $1 million business in 90 days. And for whatever reason, I watched this and thought, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Right? I can do it. And I was able to get to, I was able to do 100 or $1 million in revenue in 10 months, like, in terms of just getting back into it. But I will say this. I saw him. I went to one of his events, and I got around business owners and people who were supporting business owners, and realizing all these things that you're talking about with regards to planning for the future and understanding where you're going and what's next in your business journey, strategizing so that you're not doing all of the work. Right? I had ran businesses for other people prior to having my own. And so I had an idea of processes and those things. And I've been very lucky that the businesses afforded me some of the freedoms. But the freedoms turned out being things like this, being able to do the show, right? I'm just not picking up the phone in the support department anymore, right? Although sometimes I do. Sometimes I like being in there, right? But I kind of, I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of went off there, but that's how
No, absolutely, absolutely. I
it was
mean,
Grant.
yeah, a lot
That's
of
why
times we
I
need
give a
that
lot of credit
coach,
to Grant.
right, for the extra a set of eyes outside of what we're doing. You know, it's like somebody else to read the paper for you and be like, does this make sense? And yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and I think like having more conversations with people who love business, because business, I think, like I said, I'm an inventor, but I also love business. I love learning about how businesses scale and grow. And that's just not what most business owners go into business for. That's why it's not there for them until they meet somebody like you.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if I may, oh my goodness, I just looked at the time. Joel, I could talk to you forever, I think. This is like one of my favorite
Same.
kind of conversations.
Same,
But,
Sondra.
before I let you go, and I always say if we don't get through all the questions I have for you, because I got a list, that means you got to come back on the show because we got more to cover. But just kind of going back to your passion and personal journey, I'd love to end with this because you mentioned being a haunt actor in your early days, and I'm curious how that shaped how you think about the attraction industry today. Did it influence it? Is it what brought you here?
I got to tell you, I own so much to being a haunter. Like that's kind of that was my jam. That's what gave me the passion about it over 25 years ago. It led from me being a haunt actor to a pirate technician because I wanted the attraction to have pyrotechnics at it. And I'll tell you what I learned from it that I joke with my own children about. I think one of the best experiences from being a haunt actor is you learn one, the experience matters. If you've
Yeah.
ever been to a haunted attraction and somebody comes in and they're kind of lackluster, it makes all the difference. The other thing I think it teaches everybody to do is to kind of be a Swiss Army knife. If you've ever had the opportunity to be a haunt actor, something will inevitably go wrong, and you need to be able to transition quickly and effectively without missing a beat. And I think it's a good just life's exercise to have a better understanding of it might not go as expected. However, you need to just, what's the expression sometimes? Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
You're going to have to just trudge through and make it happen. But yeah, it's definitely my first step into the attractions industry many years ago. And I still have a deep love for it now.
I love interviewing. I did a full series on haunted attractions one year. Not, I think 2 years
I saw
ago.
Leonard in recently as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Leonard, love Leonard. But if I'm being real, I don't go to a lot of them. I just cannot handle the jump scares. This is why I can't jump out of a plane either. But Joel, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here and for what you've shared with regards to businesses planning for their futures and planning for even the future they don't want, right? I think that's kind of an interesting place that we went in this conversation, but probably a really important place to go. Do you have any final things that you want to share with the audience? And, of course, we want to know how to get a hold of you.
Sure. First and foremost, thank you for having me on today. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. And it's always nice to have a conversation with you and speak about the industry and business. Again, they're near and dear to my heart. For those people that are struggling around or simply just don't have the time to think about what a structure for a plan looks like for either their business, their own personal wealth, anything to that, I'm more than happy to get in touch, have a conversation with somebody just to see if there's any way that I can be of assistance or point you in the right direction. Email is crazy simple. It's Joel, Joel, at 12points.com. And again, looking forward to hearing to anybody that needs some guidance. More than happy to help out.
Hey, Joel, thank you so much for being here. And like I said, you got to come back because it sounds like we got a lot to talk about on this topic. So thank you again so much. And it was a pleasure meeting you at IAAPA. And I'm so glad that we've kept this connection going. So looking forward to many more events. Hopefully as cool as that first one we met at. All right, Joel. Well, you have a good one. Thank you for being here.
You too. Thanks, Sondra.
Take care. Well, that conversation with Joel, I thought was amazing. This is a conversation that I personally feel really strongly about, especially working with probably a similar audience to Joel, working with attraction owners and family businesses, and the planning that has to be a part of what you're doing as you're building a business. And also a good reminder to myself, right, as a leader of a business. Joel reminded us that success isn't just about growth. It is about control. It is about clarity. And it is about building a business that supports the life that you want. So, again, let me thank our sponsor, Gatemaster Technology, for this conversation and the programming that we have here on the Live with Sondra show. We are bringing owner-level conversations to the GT Summit, March 11th and 12th here in Denver, Colorado. And if you are serious about scale, systems, and securing your future in your business, visit gatemaster.info/GT Summit 26. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in, supporting this show. And I will see you on the next Live with Sondra. And until next time, build sustainable businesses and make sure your business works for you. And I'll see you soon.